Imagine this. Teacher, full of pride, writes a nearly impossible calculus problem on the board. He points to a quiet woman in the back of the class, mocking her in front of everyone. Laughter fills the room as she steps forward, her hands trembling, but then something shifts. Her chalk glides across the board with flawless precision, solving the equation in seconds. The class falls silent, and that is when the impossible begins. Lights flicker. The clock stops ticking. Equations start moving on their own, glowing with a strange energy. And this simple woman, she is no ordinary student. What happens next will leave the teacher and everyone else questioning reality itself. Stay with me, because this story will send chills down your spine. Asterisk, the classroom buzzed with quiet. Laughter. Students leaned over their desks, whispering jokes. The air smelled faintly of chalk and old books. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting sharp patterns on the floor at the front. Mr. Harris adjusted his glasses, smirk curling at the edge of his lips. He tapped the chalk against the board, the sound sharp and deliberate. "Hey, why do you not try this problem?" he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. His finger pointed to a complicated equation sprawled across the chalkboard. The symbols twisted like vines, tangled and impossible to untangle. Every student turned to look at her. The simple woman sat near, the back, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Her dress was plain, faded at the edges, and her shoes had a slight scuff on the toes. Her hair was tied back in a simple knot, a strand falling loose against her cheek. She looked up, startled. As whispers rippled through the room, her cheeks flushed a soft red, and her heartbeat quickened. She stood slowly, her chair scraping against the wooden floor. The sound echoed sharply. Cutting through the snickers of her classmates, Mr. Harris raised an eyebrow, his expression mocking yet curious. She walked to the front. Her steps measured but shaky. The chalk felt cold and dusty in her trembling hand. The board loomed before her, symbols sprawling like an unsolvable puzzle. A drop of sweat slid down her temple, catching the sunlight. The students leaned forward, eyes glinting with amusement, some stifled laughter behind their hands. Her breath trembled in her chest, but her eyes narrowed with sudden focus. She studied the equation, her mind sharpening, her pulse slowing. Her fingers gripped the chalk with certainty now. She made the first mark, her hand moving smoothly. Whispers turned to silence. The chalk glided over the board, a soft hiss breaking the stillness. Every line she drew connected perfectly, flowing like music. Equations simplified beneath her. Steady touch. The smirk vanished from Mr. Harris's face. His eyes widened as numbers aligned flawlessly. Students exchanged confused glances, the room growing colder. Her breathing was calm now, each movement confident. The final answer appeared with a single strike of chalk. She stepped back, her hand smudged white, her face serene. The classroom was dead silent. Chairs creaked as students leaned closer, stunned. Mr. Harris's mouth opened, but no words came out. She turned slowly, meeting his gaze with an unreadable expression. The sunlight flickered as a cloud passed overhead, dimming the room. Her shadow stretched long against the floor. Sharp and still, something about her eyes seemed different, deeper, almost unrecognizable. A chill swept through the room. Though no window was open, her voice was soft, but carried an edge that silenced every breath. "Is that the answer you expected?" she asked. No one spoke. The sound of the ticking clock on the wall grew unbearably loud. Each second echoed like a hammer strike. Her presence filled the room, heavy and unshakable. Students shifted uneasily in their seats, their laughter replaced by unease. Even the sunlight seemed hesitant to return. She placed the chalk gently on the ledge, the soft click breaking the tension. Her gaze scanned the room. Lingering on each stunned face, Mr. Harris took a step back, his expression pale. Her lips curled into the faintest smile, though her eyes remained cold. "Maybe," she whispered, "you should try a harder one." The silence deepened, thick enough to choke on. Every student's heart pounded in rhythm, their fear unspoken but palpable. The chalkboard behind her glistened with perfect logic. Almost glowing under the dim light, she turned and began walking. Back to her seat, each step measured. Deliberate, no one dared to look away. The sound of her heels against the wooden floor seemed deafening now. Even the dust motes hanging in the air felt suspended. Waiting, she sat down, folding her hands neatly, her expression unreadable. The tension in the room was unbearable, as if everyone was holding their breath at once. Mr. Harris adjusted his glasses again, but his hands trembled. He cleared his throat, but his voice failed him. Every student's gaze darted between him and the equation, unable to comprehend what they had just seen. It was not just that she had solved it. It was the way she had done it. With precision, with ease, with something that felt far beyond human. The air in the classroom felt charged, electric, like a storm was about to break. Her calm, steady breathing was the only sound anyone could hear. Would you like me to build more tension from here? Or shift to a shocking reveal of her true nature? Asterisk, Mr. Harris swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing as his throat tightened. He tried to speak again, but the words stuck like stones. The students sat frozen, their wide eyes fixed on her. A faint hum filled the silence. So soft it was almost inaudible. It was not from the light, it seemed to come from her. Her fingers rested calmly on the desk, but her nails tapped in an odd rhythm. Precise and steady. Tap, tap, pause. Tap dot. Each sound seemed deliberate, almost mathematical. 1. Boy in the back shivered and rubbed his arms. The hum grew louder, resonating through the room like distant machinery. Mr. Harris finally forced out a shaky laugh. Very impressive, he managed to say, but his voice cracked. She tilted her head, her expression flat, her eyes unblinking. The boy nearest to her flinched as her gaze passed over him. Something about her stare felt too sharp, too calculating. The fluorescent lights above flickered once. Buzzing faintly, a girl near the window gasped softly, glancing at her phone. The clock on the wall had stopped ticking. Its second hand hovered, unmoving, frozen at precisely 2:14. Did anyone notice that? The girl whispered, her voice trembled, breaking the heavy silence. No one responded. Everyone was watching her. She blinked slowly, as if the question did not matter. Her lips parted slightly, and she spoke with eerie calm. Time is irrelevant. A collective shiver rippled through the class. Mr. Harris dropped his chalk. It hit the floor with a sharp snap. It sounded unnaturally loud. The hum grew stronger, rattling the windows faintly. Her eyes shifted to the equation on the board, still. Glowing faintly in the dim light, symbols that had once seemed meaningless now looked alive, pulsing as if they carried hidden energy. One student stifled a sob, clutching the edge of their desk. The room felt smaller, suffocating, as if the walls were closing in. She rose from her seat slowly, her chair sliding back without a sound. Her footsteps were silent now, unnaturally so. As she moved toward the CHALK, BOARD, no one dared to move. She lifted her hand and traced a single line through the equation, her fingertip leaving a faint streak of light across the board. The hum stopped instantly. The silence was deafening, crushing every sound. She turned back to face them, her eyes glowing faintly, almost imperceptibly. "Do you understand it now?" she asked softly. Mr. Harris stumbled backward, his face pale as chalk. "No," he whispered. Her faint smile returned, but this time it felt wrong, too sharp. "Good," she said. The lights above went out, plunging the room into darkness. Only the glowing equation remained, illuminating her silhouette. Students gasped, some clutching their desks, some reaching for their phones, but none of their screens lit up. Not a single device worked. The air felt thick, pressing down on their chests, making it hard to breathe in the dim glow. Her shadow stretched unnaturally long across the floor. It moved before she did. Someone screamed, "Would you like me to keep building the supernatural tension? Reveal exactly what she is in the next part?" The walls trembled, their edges bending like liquid. The ceiling cracked, thin fractures spreading in all directions. Dust rained down, glowing faintly in the unnatural light. The desks and chairs floated a few inches off the floor, weightless. Swaying like they were caught in a slow current, students clung to each other, their screams barely audible over the low, vibrating hum. The chalkboard was gone, placed by a swirling vortex of symbols and numbers. They spun faster, creating a tunnel of blinding light that seemed to stretch endlessly. The void outside the windows pressed closer, black tendrils curling against the glass like smoke. A boy near the back covered his ears and sobbed. His eyes squeezed shut. When he opened them, the world outside had vanished entirely. No sky, no ground, only an endless, suffocating nothingness. The woman raised her hand higher, and the glowing sphere grew larger, bathing everything in stark white light. Her face remained calm, her movements precise. She whispered softly, but her voice echoed like thunder. "This is the answer you wanted." The vortex behind her pulsed, symbols flickering as if alive. Some students began to float higher, their legs kicking helplessly as they tried to reach the floor. Mr. Harris crawled backward, his face contorted in terror, sweat pouring down his forehead. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked and failed him. She turned her gaze on him, her glowing eyes locking him in place. "You thought this was a joke?" she said softly. "But knowledge is never a joke." The air around her rippled like heat waves, distorting her figure. Her shadow stretched across the floor, splitting into multiple shapes that slithered outward. One shadow crept toward Mr. Harris. Curling around his ankle like a living thing, he screamed and kicked, but the shadow held him fast. The students shrieked as the floor beneath them cracked open, revealing nothing but darkness. The classroom no longer felt like a room. It felt like a fragment of reality, suspended over an endless abyss. She stepped forward, the glowing sphere orbiting her hand like a miniature sun. The symbols spun faster, forming a massive circle of light around her. Her calm voice cut through the chaos. "Would you like me to stop?" The question was soft, almost kind, but no one dared to answer. The room groaned like a living creature, the ceiling bending downward as if gravity itself was collapsing. Her gaze swept over the students, her glowing eyes piercing through their fear. "Or should I show you everything?" The word echoed, stretching unnaturally, filling their minds. The glowing sphere flared, blinding them, and for a moment, no one could see. Only the hum remained, low, deep, relentless. When their vision cleared, the classroom was gone. They floated in a vast expanse of light and shadow, an infinite sky with no ground beneath them. The woman stood in the center of it all, untouched by fear. Her plain dress flowing as if caught in an unseen wind. Symbols spiraled around her like a crown. Glowing brighter with every pulse, Mr. Harris hovered helplessly in the air, his limbs stiff with terror. The students screamed, their voices echoing endlessly in the void. But her voice cut through, calm and steady. "This is truth." She spread her arms and the entire space rippled. Shapes began to form in the light towers' cities, and strange landscapes rising and crumbling in seconds. It was a world made of equations, constantly rewriting itself. She stepped forward, her feet leaving ripples in the glowing surface of nothingness. Every symbol in the air turned to face her, lining like soldiers awaiting orders. The hum intensified, rattling their bones, filling their skulls with strange whispers. She looked at Mr. Harris, and for a moment her faint smile returned. "You wanted me to solve your equation," she said, "but I was the equation all along." The symbols exploded outward like a storm of light, swallowing everything. "Would you like me to push this into a terrifying climax where she reveals her full power? Or make it a chilling slow burn where the students realize something much darker about her?" Asterisk, the storm of symbols slowed, light dimmed, softening into a calm glow that bathed everything in pale gold. The air, once heavy with vibrations, fell silent. Students hovered for a moment longer, suspended like stars in an endless sky. Then gently, they drifted back down. Their feet touched the wooden floor of their classroom once again. The desks and chairs were perfectly aligned, as if they had never moved. The chalkboard stood clean and empty, no trace of glowing equations. The sunlight streamed through the tall windows once more, warm and steady. For a moment no one dared to breathe. Mr. Harris lay trembling on the floor, his glasses crooked, his face pale. The students sat frozen, hands gripping their desks, eyes wide and unblinking. She stood at the front of the class, calm and composed, her plain dress swaying slightly. There was no sign of the storm, the symbols, or the void. Only her steady breathing broke the silence. She placed the chalk back on the ledge, her fingers still faintly dusted white. Then she turned, her expression soft but unreadable. "You should be more careful with what you ask of others," she said quietly. Her words hung in the air, sharp and clear. Mr. Harris swallowed hard, unable to respond. She walked back to her seat with slow, deliberate steps. Each footstep echoed in the silent classroom. She sat down, folding her hands neatly on her desk, her posture composed. The students exchanged uneasy glances, but no one dared to speak. Mr. Harris adjusted his glasses with shaking hands, forcing a weak smile. "Well, class dismissed," he whispered. Chairs scraped softly as the students hurried out. Their faces pale, their voices hushed. None of them dared to look back at her. She remained seated, her gaze fixed on the chalkboard, her face calm, serene. The room emptied, leaving her alone. Sunlight glimmered softly through the window, catching her reflection. For a split second, her reflection did not match her movement. Her lips curled into the faintest smile. The clock on the wall ticked again, steady. And sure, time moved forward, but something in the room felt forever changed. No one would speak of that lesson again, but every student. Mr. Harris himself carried the memory, a memory of a simple woman who was not simple at all, and the quiet knowledge that she had chosen to let them go. The scream cut through the darkness like shattered glass. Every head whipped toward the sound, but no one could see who had made it. The glow from the board pulsed, brighter now, washing the room in cold white light. Her shadow writhed on the floor, twisting and bending unnaturally. She stepped forward, her face calm, but her eyes burned with a quiet, eerie intensity. Students pressed back in their seats, knuckles white as they clutched their desks. The air buzzed like static. Prickling against their skin, Mr. Harris stumbled, bumping into the edge of his desk. He tried to run for the door, but it refused to budge. The handle rattled uselessly in his trembling hand. Her voice floated through the silence, soft and melodic. "Why are you afraid?" Her question lingered, heavy and strange, as if it carried more weight than words should. The glowing symbols on the board began to rearrange themselves. Numbers shifted, lines curved, spirals formed, all moving like a living organism. Gasps filled the room as the equation transformed into something unrecognizable. It was not math anymore. It was a language, a message. One girl whimpered, clutching her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. She whispered through sobs, I can hear it." Her words sent a ripple of panic through the students. Some clapped their hands over their ears. But the sound was not coming from outside. It was inside their heads. A low vibration filled their skulls, whispering voice they could not understand. The woman moved closer to the board, her silhouette flickering in the shifting glow. Her presence felt enormous now, towering, as if she was no longer confined to her body. The chalk floated from the ledge, spinning slowly in midair. "Knowledge is power," she murmured, her voice both gentle and terrifying. "Too much power can break a mind." The glowing equation expanded, covering the entire wall, symbols spinning faster and faster. Mr. Harris fell to his knees, clutching, his head groaning in pain. The humming returned, louder this time, like an engine roaring to life. Lights outside the windows flickered wildly, casting flashes across their terrified faces. One boy bolted for the window, desperate to escape. But when he pressed his palms to the glass, he froze. His scream was silent as he stared outside. There was nothing there. No trees, no sky, no world at all, just a black void, endless and suffocating. The boy collapsed. Trembling violently, unable to speak, the woman turned toward him, her expression unreadable. "You see it now?" she said softly. Her voice carried an echo that seemed to come from all directions at once. Some students sobbed quietly, others sat paralyzed in shock. The chalk spun faster in the air, tracing glowing circles and spirals. Each shape pulsed like a heartbeat, casting flickering shadows that danced across their pale faces. Then she looked directly at Mr. Harris. He froze, trembling, tears streaking down his face. "You wanted me to fail," she whispered. He shook his head violently, stammering, I. She raised her hand, and the humming stopped again. Silence, the glowing symbols froze mid-motion. Everyone held their breath, waiting. She took a single step forward. The floor beneath her foot rippled like water. "Would you like me to now bring her full, reveal showing what she truly is, or keep stretching the suspense longer before the climax?" The ripples spread across the wooden floor, distorting the desks and chairs around her. Students gasped as their seats shifted slightly, as if the ground itself was alive. The glow from the wall pulsed once, twice, and then every symbol vanished. The chalk fell to the floor with a soft clink. Darkness swallowed the room again. Only her eyes glimmered faintly in the blackness. A soft wind swept through the classroom. Though every window was closed, it carried the scent of ozone, sharp and metallic, like the air before a lightning strike. Some students clutched their desks tightly, their breaths ragged and uneven. Others began to whisper prayers under their breath. Her voice broke the silence, smooth and chilling. "You mocked me." Her words echoed unnaturally, bouncing off every wall. Mr. Harris flinched, sweat dripping down his temples. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. She took another step forward. The ripple beneath her feet spread wider, making the desks closest to her tremble. One chair tipped over with a loud crash. Students screamed, their voices swallowed quickly by the suffocating silence. Her eyes glowed brighter now, an unnatural white light that pierced the dark. "You wanted a spectacle," she said softly, "and now you have one." The void outside the windows thickened, pressing against the glass like a living shadow. The hum returned, deeper this time, vibrating through their bones. The fluorescent lights flickered back on, but they were dim almost. Dying in their weak glow, her figure looked taller, stretched, her shadow bending in impossible ways. The symbols on the chalkboard reappeared in a blinding flash. Filling every wall, every corner of the room, the numbers spun, twisting into spirals that seemed to pull the light inward. A low groan filled the air like the earth itself was protesting. Some students collapsed to the floor, covering their ears. Mr. Harris fell backward. Crawling away on trembling hands, she tilted her head slowly, her gaze fixed on him. "You do not understand what you have invited." Her voice was calm, but it carried an ancient weight. Something far older than the walls around them. The humming symbols began to float, detaching from the walls, swirling through the air like glowing dust. Each one pulsed with energy, buzzing faintly as they orbited her. Her body was still, but the air around her shimmered as though reality itself was bending. Students clung to each other, their faces pale, their voices lost. No one dared to move. She extended her hand, palm open, and the floating symbols gathered into a single, blinding sphere of light. The glow grew brighter, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. The room felt like it was spinning, as though gravity itself was slipping away. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything went silent. The lights died completely. The glowing sphere hovered above her palm, illuminating her face in stark white light. Her expression was calm, it's almost serene, but her eyes burned with power. She stepped toward Mr. Harris as the sphere, pulsing in rhythm with his panicked breaths. "You asked me to solve a problem," she whispered, "and now I will show you the solution." The sphere expanded, filling the entire room with its cold, harsh light. Shadows twisted violently across the walls. Students screamed again, but their voices seemed distant, muffled as if the sound was being swallowed. The windows cracked, splintering. Under the pressure of the void outside, the floor beneath them groaned. Board splitting slightly. She raised the sphere higher, her gaze locked on Mr. Harris, whose face was pale with terror. "Look closely," she said softly. "This is truth." The sphere erupted into a cascade of spinning equations, glowing symbols flying in every direction. They wrapped around the students like glowing chains, pulling them upward slightly, weightless. Air vibrated with power, every breath heavy and sharp. Mr. Harris's scream finally tore through the chaos, raw and desperate. The woman's face was illuminated by the swirling lights, calm and unshaken. She closed her eyes, and the room began to dissolve. "Would you like me to push this scene into full chaos next? With the classroom tearing apart, or slow down for a chilling reveal about her true nature?"